Welcome, everyone. Like the mask, babe. I like the background.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm loving the springy background. The actual view out the campus window is a very, very snowy scene. So nice to see those spring flowers in bloom.
Yes, definitely a difference.
Before we get started and waiting for some other folks to arrive, if you want to take a moment to add your class year, you can do that by hovering the upper right corner of your block. You'll see 3 dots, and then if you right click on those 3 dots, there's the option to rename. And so that would give you the opportunity to include your class year if you're willing. For sharing, thank you. We'll give folks one more minute to roll in. Okay, I'm sure we will still have a few more folks join us, but I think I'd like to go ahead and get started out of respect for everyone else's time who's here and ready. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm Kathleen Brown. I'm with the Bryant Office of Alumni and Parent Engagement. I'm joined here with my colleague, Jessica Dang, and we're so happy you could join us today. This is part 1 of a 2-part series. So at some point we'll put in the chat the date and title for the second part of this series. And when we send out our acknowledgement for attending today, we'll be able to include the link for part 2 for you to go ahead and register for that second piece. I'd like to go ahead now and introduce you to one of my favorite Bryant alum and volunteers, Eileen Hayes. Eileen is Vice President and Asset Manager, Relationship Management at Envestnet. She is an outstanding ambassador for Bryant University. She's had served as Student Senate President when she was on campus. She's been the chair of both our Boston and New York alumni networks, and she's currently a member of our National Alumni Council. We are so grateful for her dedication to Bryant. I know that she brings that love and enthusiasm with her here today. Eileen?
Thank you, Kathleen, and good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today. I graduated in 2007, which kind of feels like yesterday, but as an alumni, I am so beyond grateful to have such an amazing network and ecosystem, and I don't think I realized that it doesn't end when you graduate. It was an alumni who helped me to get my first job. It's alumni who are my mentors. And it's alumni who really pay it forward to help the next generation to be as successful as possible. So we have such a special place here at Bryant, and I believe in this network. And I hope I can volunteer for as long as Kathleen will let me. But it's a true testimonial to how great this community is, just based on the number of people who have dialed in today. The fact that you have chosen to be part of a 4 p.m. tail end of the workday webinar to talk about financial literacy does not go unnoticed. So well done for dialing in today. But something that you probably have figured out is that no matter what age we are or where we are in our lives, we all have something in common. We deal with money, right? And we need money to be able to have the freedom to create our financial narrative as we grow older. To be honest with you, I had a lot of years in my life where I felt that I didn't really deserve to have or look at my financials or create goals. I was just so poor. I was working 2 jobs. I had student loans. I had credit card debt. But what I didn't realize is that it's really a rite of passage in your 20s to go through that part of a growth period. And it wasn't until I really sat down and faced the reality of my financial situation and created a plan that I was able to see that light at the end of the tunnel and be able to pull myself out of that. So someone on this call may have $100 in their savings account and really get me right now. And someone else may be nearing retirement and going to an amazing golf course in Florida. But no matter where we are in our life, understanding where you are and where you want to go is kind of that key piece. So we're so grateful you've given us this time today to dive into financial literacy and how this topic really applies to you. And hopefully you go away with carrying some value and insight into today. And as Kathleen said, our goal is to deliver a 2-part series. So today is Envestnet MoneyGuide, giving you an example of a financial plan and how to reach some of your goals. And then on March 17th will be the second session where we'll take a panel of alumni to share their experiences, where some people who help people reach their goals will give tools and tips, and some people will open up and share their experiences and their kind of roadmap in their journey through financial challenges and obstacles that we can probably relate to. So stay tuned for the second part of that invitation. But getting back to why we're here today, I work for a firm called Envestnet, and we are a fintech firm whose mission is really to empower financial advisors to be able to deliver the best outcomes for their clients. And one of the amazing services we offer is Envestnet MoneyGuide, which is a goals-based financial planning tool to help clients define and prioritize their goals into needs, wants, and wishes, which we all have. I'm joined today by my colleague, Soraya Morris. She is a lead trainer for Envestnet MoneyGuide, and Soraya helps to deliver live in good times and virtual trainings. She's basically the angel of financial planning. So her role is to really help users create and confidently deliver financial plans so that their clients really are educated and understand the benefits of a quality financial plan. I'm so proud to introduce such a key member of our team. And before I take up way too much space on this webinar, I welcome Soraya Morris.
Thank you so much, Eileen. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. And I want to see your faces. So you might see me looking back and forth. I have 2 screens here. I have that over here. There we go. And let's see if I can spotlight myself. There we go. So I'll appear at the top as more folks continue to join. There we go. All right, so yes, as Eileen said, I'm a lead trainer at Envestnet MoneyGuide, and this call is mostly women. I know we have a lot of different titles and different jobs. So Envestnet MoneyGuide is one of my jobs. I'm often traveling the country to present trainings when we can travel in person. I don't know when that's going to be again, but I really enjoy traveling. I'm also a wife. I have a little dog down here. We're in Richmond, Virginia, so we don't have nearly as much snow as most of y'all up north do. And I'm also a new mom. So I have a son, he's 5 months old. I have some little photos here because that's another one of my jobs. And another reason I have my why and I have my goals. And I have a list of books here because we all have our pandemic projects. That was one of my projects, reorganizing my bookshelves by color. I have a lot of time on my hands now that we didn't have time before. So as we go throughout the presentation today, feel free to type some questions into the question area. I'm going to try to keep an eye on that, but it is not showing up for me. Let me see if I can remove my spotlight. Nope, that didn't work. So our folks, Eileen will keep an eye on it. Jessica will keep an eye on it. And I will try to figure out how to figure out where my chat is at some point. There we go. All right, so now I have the chat up, so I'll keep an eye on those questions that come in as well. So let's jump into what we're going to cover today. We have a few different topics. First, why financial literacy and why financial planning is important, particularly for women. So I highlighted some different statistics and data that show why that's important for us. Also, some financial terminology. I want you to leave feeling confident and empowered. And if you decide to reach out to a financial advisor, I want you to feel comfortable with some of the things they might say, and some questions you can even ask them, because you're interviewing them. They're going to handle your money. You want to understand what they bring to the table. And then we're going to talk about some different financial goals based on where you are in life and your timeline. I see in our participants, we have alumni from all different years. I see 2022, so we have a student on 2007, going back pretty far. So just feel free to jump in with any questions that you might have. I'm happy to help with that. Just keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor, so I cannot provide financial advice for you, but I'll be happy to answer any general questions, any questions about terminology, and then we're going to build a sample financial plan together. So you're going to chat in some information and I'm going to enter it into the financial plan, and then we can see how making small tweaks and changes to your habits and your financial goals and your saving, your spending, how that I could adjust and change your financial plan results. So we'll do that as well. So I'll start here with some startling for some, maybe not for others if you're familiar with some of this information, but some different statistics and data on being a woman in our society. First, that gender pay gap. So a lot of you may know, but one study found women earn 75, or if you're a woman of color, 62 cents on the dollar compared to men. Women are mostly the essential workers. We work in travel, education, a lot of our teachers, healthcare, our nurses, retail, restaurants. A lot of those are women. 1 in 3 women actually have a job that's considered an essential worker. Then we have our peak earnings for men. That's age 55. For women, it's age 44. So that's not saying that we earn the same amount, but as women, we get there faster. This is saying that men are continuing not only to earn more because of the gender pay gap, but they're actually earning more longer than women historically. Then we have the pink tax, and I just saw something on TikTok today. I was going to try to figure out how to share my phone screen on the computer, but it was too close to the presentation. But the pink tax is saying that we're being charged for more for the exact same thing, but it's just marketed to us differently. So they change the color to pink, or they say for women, and the price is marked up. So we're paying more, we're earning less over a longer period of time, we're earning less on the dollar. And then we have less positions of leadership historically. With of the 500 Fortune 500 companies, only 37 of them are run by women, with women CEOs. Surprisingly, with all of those startling and unfortunate statistics, women actually outperform men by 1% based on investment performance. So that was another study that shows that we're actually earning more in our accounts, but we're not saving and earning enough over time. So although we're earning more, they have more in their accounts. And this big blue tile here in the middle, our life expectancy actually exceeds that of men by 6 to 9 years. So we're living longer, which means we need more money, but we're earning less. We're getting less on the dollar, where our peak earnings are lower, although our performance is higher. And that's where financial literacy comes in, and being able to advocate for yourself, to ask for those raises, to understand your value and your worth, understanding what to do with your money when you have it, not getting into that credit card debt, or like Eileen said, going through that phase early, getting it out of the way, and continuing to build wealth and to grow your investments over time. So that's the financial literacy piece, but we also have financial planning, which I think is really important. And I love financial planning because it encompasses all these different areas. So modular financial planning or specialized financial planning would just look at one of these sections, like just looking at your investments or just looking at your insurance. But when you work with a comprehensive financial advisor, they can actually help you look at all of these different sections. And I like to think of them as your quarterback. They're not going to be a CPA and a lawyer and an investment expert and an insurance expert, but they can be that middle person for you. They can be the person that communicates between all those different professionals, to have all your information and all your accounts in one place, to be your advocate between all those different professionals. So with that comprehensive financial planning, they're going to look at your investments long term. They're going to look and make sure your family is covered if anything were to happen to you, which of course we don't want to happen, but we have to plan for these things. My husband, he's a small business owner, so we want to take that into account, your tax planning, your estate planning, education and planning for your child's college. So these are all the different components and the different pieces of a comprehensive financial plan. So when you're out there looking for a financial advisor, this is a question to ask. Do you do comprehensive planning, or are they just looking at your investments or just looking at your insurance? Because if that's the case, at least you can go in with that knowledge, but you may want to consider working with someone who can look at all the different areas for you, because they do really play well together, and it's really important to look at them together. So I'm taking a look at the chat, definitely type in any questions that come up. So I talked about the value of a financial advisor, looking at your comprehensive financial plan. Now let's look at some terminology. My favorite is this word at the top left corner. It's called a fiduciary. And a fiduciary means that they're legally obligated to work in your best interest. So for example, your doctor is a fiduciary. Your doctor is required to work in your best interest. Even though they work at a hospital, now hospital signs their checks and gives them their benefits, they have to work in your best interest to save you, to help you, period. Same thing with a lawyer. Once you hire your lawyer, they're your fiduciary. They work for you, even though they may get some benefits or a salary from their company. So that's a question to ask your financial advisor. Are you a fiduciary? Are you required to work in my best interest? And if not, well, how, whose best interest are you working for? I think that's a great question. Yes, Jennifer gets it. I think it's a great question to ask. Are you working in my best interest? Because if I was going to the doctor's office and they told me they weren't a fiduciary, they don't work in my best interest, they work for the pharmaceutical company, and whoever gives them the most money to push their pills, that's who they're going to prescribe. And that's not what I want. I want someone who's going to look at my situation, prescribe me a unique and specific recommendation based on what's going on with me, not based off of what someone else is giving them or kickbacks or pushback. So just keep that in mind, ask that question. And if they're not a fiduciary and you still want to work with them, that's okay. But now going in, okay, this person has this other best interest in mind. Maybe it's their employer, maybe they have to sell this certain product. At least you go in and you know that, versus going in and thinking they're working in your best interest and they're not. And that's where that second part, right underneath the fiduciary, is compensation. I think a great question to ask your financial advisor is, how are you compensated? Just get it out the way, ask up front. I want to know, are you compensated? So my husband and I, we've been looking for a financial advisor. Are you compensated monthly? Do I pay you monthly or quarterly or an upfront fee? Or are you compensated based on the assets that I bring over to your firm? So maybe if you invest my assets, you take a portion of the account that I manage. Maybe you get compensated based off of the products that you sell me, which I may need. We recently purchased some disability insurance, which is important. If something happens to my husband and he can't work, I want to make sure we can still have some kind of paycheck coming in. So that's where his disability insurance comes in. So just asking that question, how are you compensated? Who's signing your paycheck? That'll help you as well as you go in to know, are they working in your best interest? And just being able to decipher, is this best for me? You may hear my son come in. He just woke up from his nap. I hear him, so they may come in for a moment, may not. Then we have AUM. That's an acronym you might see a lot when working with your advisor. That's assets under management. So that's just how much money do they have at their firm? How much do they manage across all the different accounts that they have? So maybe you have a 401k and it has $300,000. That will go in the pot. And Eileen has a 401k and it's $1 million. And they're just putting all that money together. And a lot of times they'll advertise, we have 10 million assets under management. That's just all the different accounts that they manage across their firm. So nothing to be concerned about. Then risk tolerance. I think risk tolerance is very important, because we have to understand how much risk are we willing to take, because we don't want to take too much risk, because our worst case scenario is selling at the worst time, selling when the market's down and losing money. So as we know, 07, 09, the market's up, it's down, it's down, it's down, and you're scared and you're nervous. But what you don't want to do is have so much risk in your account that you can't sleep at night, that you're worried and that you're scared and you're constantly checking your phone or your Apple Watch and refreshing the screen to see what's happening in my account. So there are different risk tolerance questionnaires, there's different softwares, and there's different ways the advisor will try to gauge your risk tolerance. But if they don't ask for your risk tolerance, that's a red flag because everyone's different. Everyone is invested differently, and you want your accounts invested custom for you, custom for your risk tolerance and how much you're willing to take. And we'll talk more about risk and the market going up and down in a moment. So then we have diversification here at the bottom in the middle. And that's just diversifying or spreading your investments across different sectors. So we have our stocks, we have our bonds, we have cash, and we want to just make sure we have a diverse portfolio with lots of different types of investments because of something called correlation. So oftentimes when one thing is up, another thing is down, and another thing is up, the other thing is down. So we want to make sure that our portfolio is diversified. Then on the far right, we have assets, liabilities. So our assets are things that we own, our house, our car, our accounts, our 401k, our checking accounts, our savings accounts, versus your liabilities are your debts, your credit cards, your student loans, your balance on your car if it's not paid off. Those are your liabilities. So when looking at our net worth, we're looking at our assets minus our liabilities, and that will equal our net worth. Then we have at the very top our retirement accounts and our brokerage accounts. So your retirement accounts, and we'll talk about where you are in your timeline in a moment, but maybe recent graduates, you're trying to choose which retirement account is best for you. So that may be your 401ks, your IRAs, depending where you work, you may have a 457 or 403B if you're in like a teacher, for example, or working in some other sectors. So those are your retirement accounts. It's an alphabet soup of different acronyms and different letters, but don't be alarmed, don't be nervous. You can easily Google them. And HR is required to talk to you about those things. So if you're unsure what it means or the questions that it's asking or what these different acronyms stand for, you can always reach out to your HR department. They are there to help you. They have to. Your brokerage accounts are those accounts that are not retirement accounts. Those are taxable accounts. So you'll have less penalties if you have to remove money out of those accounts. So you can invest in those accounts on the side. So if anyone's been listening and hearing about Robinhood, that's a brokerage type of account. That's not saving for your retirement. That's more of your fund money or your investment money on the side. So I don't see any questions coming in about some of those basic terminologies. And this is being recorded, so you can always go back and listen to it later if you want a refresher. But my favorite one here on this page is fiduciary and compensation. And just asking that question, do you have to work in my best interest? How are you compensated? And going from there. All right. So let's get a little engagement going. At the top of your Zoom screen, you should have an option that says annotate. If you click that, you should see a stamp option. So go ahead and choose one of those stamps and mark which of these boxes you feel as though you fall into. Which category or timeline do you feel like you're in? So a lot of mid, late career. Okay, one college student. Okay, a couple more college students. I'll give you a second here. Where do you feel you fall? And utilize the stamp, not the just the pen, because I can't really see the dots with a pen. I see some tiny dots. So I see mostly the mid, late career folks on the line. No retired. I like the gold stars. It makes me feel like I'm doing a good job. Thanks for those gold stars. A check mark. Okay. All right, I'll pause here. So it looks like we have mostly recent graduates and some mid to late career. I'll say ladies. I'm sure there are some guys on the line, but I'll say ladies. And I'll clear our drawings. Thank you for that. Perfect. So I'm going to show some different timelines and some different goals based on where you are in your timeline. Even though we do have some mid or late career ladies on the line, you might have a high school student at home or know some high school students or college students, early career. So we'll go through all of them. But I think the main point to focus on, especially for you who are earlier in your career, is your financial goals don't just have to be retirement. It can be buying your first home. If you're mid or late career, it could be downsizing your home. So just know that your financial goals, they're going to be your spending in retirement. It doesn't have to be just retirement. So start with high school, because a lot of the decisions we make in high school, surprisingly, will impact us later in life. Starting with that very big question, what do I want to do? Because what you decide to do after high school is going to have an impact on your future earnings as well as your student loan debt. Those are two very big things that impact your financial future, continuing through all of these different timelines. So speaking to our high school students about financial literacy early, making sure they understand those basic financial literacy concepts, and also thinking about, what do you want to do? How much does that pay? How much debt may you have to go into for that? Which college might be best for you to pursue that type of career? Or maybe is it technical school or the military, community college? So I think it's just a good conversation to have. I didn't want to skip over it because I do think there's some value there. We had a few college students on the line. So in addition to working towards your future career, you want something that's fulfilling and something that's lucrative. I also think you start to see some new challenges you might not have seen before, like budgeting. And Eileen mentioned, credit card debt, and that's oftentimes because we don't have a budget yet. We're just spending, we're enjoying life. No spring breaks right now, but hopefully you can get back to your spring break soon. And if those are things you want to budget for. And the budget is just telling your money where you want it to go instead of spending it and then thinking later, where did all my money go? Because I think we've all been there before, where we spend our money and we're like, where did it go? I don't have new clothes. I don't have this. Where did it go? Oftentimes we eat it. That's what I find. You eat your money or you drink your money when you go out. I see a couple of you nodding your head. So your budget is telling your money where you want it to go. Also thinking about your savings. Do you have something for an unexpected expense or for a rainy day? Thinking about that ahead of time, because that's also a common reason that people go into credit card debt. Maybe you have a flat tire, right? If you have a flat tire, what are you going to do if you don't have $100 in your account to get a donut or a spare? You're going to put it on your credit card. And that credit card is not just going to sit there and you just pay that $100 back. It's going to grow, unfortunately. So thinking about how can I fund those unexpected expenses, because they're going to come up. It's not if, it's more of when they're going to come up. And of course, you want to set some fun money aside and then trying to stay out of that credit card debt as long as possible. So speaking of credit cards, let's do a quick poll. Write me in the chat. If you have a $5,000 credit card balance, let's say the minimum payment is $200, it's about 20% interest rate. How many years do you think it'll take to pay off that credit card? Just doing the minimum payment, no extra on top of that. So $5,000, 20%, $200 payment. All right, I see some folks typing in. Thank you. Someone said 50 years, 500 years. 50. Okay, I see that. 12 years. All right. And the second part, how much do you think you'll have to pay over that period of time total? So you borrowed 5,000. How much do you think you'll have to pay back? It's a 20% interest, 7,800, 22,000. Someone said 3 times, 15,000, 8,800. All right. So we have our answer here. It'll take 12 years to pay back. So Linda, you got it. Katie, you're close. Amy, you're close. But Linda, you were spot on. Jennifer, you're spot on. And a little over $8,000 you're paying back, which is insane. You borrowed 5,000, you're paying them back 8,000. And then you think about what you could have done with that $3,000, right? You could have gone on a spring break trip. You could have put that in your retirement fund or your kids' college fund. But instead, you're paying back the credit card company, and that $5,000 trip or that $5,000 emergency expense, it's gone. That's 12 years ago. You don't remember what you spent that $5,000 on. So that's the value of having some money put aside so you don't have to borrow. Worst case, you do have to borrow and you would pay it off at the end of the month or as soon as possible. But by just paying that minimum payment, 12 years, that's a really long time to pay that off. And then you're paying not quite double, but it's pretty close. So then we have those starting our career, so our recent alumna, our career starters, and then you also have some really big decisions then. And on top of budgeting, on top of staying out of debt, then you have to look at your health insurance plans. Then you have to look at your retirement plan options and how much do you put in. And that's often an age where a lot of us start to think about, do I want to get married? Do I want to start a family? If so, how long do I want to wait? Do I want to save a certain amount or buy a house first? Those are really important financial decisions to think about as soon as you graduate from college. So that's something to keep in mind. Some people have to go through fertility treatments, adoption, surrogacy, and these have some really large price tags. So preparing for these things financially and knowing, this could come up, buying a house or having to do adoption, for example. These are things that might come up. So we need to make sure we're saving, putting some money aside, looking at which company we work for. Some companies will pay off some of your student loan debt when you go to work for them. That's a benefit. Some companies will help pay for your kids' college one day. So when you're going in and negotiating your salary and your benefits, these are some questions to ask. Because with these tech companies, Eileen and I, we work in fintech. There's some really nice perks out there. You look at your Googles and your Facebook, they're covering a lot of expenses. So just remember when you're interviewing places and you're starting your career, they're not just interviewing you, you're also interviewing them. And you want to negotiate and you want to bring these types of questions to the table. Worst case, they say no. Best case, they say yes, and they might cover some of these expenses. So just know right out of school, you might have some really big and sometimes scary financial decisions to make, but just take it one step at a time, research, talk to your HR department, and they are always there to help. And then we have where most of you fail your mid and late career. And this is likely when you're earning the highest income that you're going to earn in your career. So you're really starting to think about retirement, saving for your kids' college. Those are some of the popular goals that we see in our software during this time. But also, you want to think about, is your family protected? If something happens to you, I know for me, if I wasn't able to work for a period of time, or I went on maternity leave recently, for example, my company had short term disability. So you pay into the disability, and then when you need it, it'll pay you. So just looking and thinking about some of these things before they happen is the best practice. So just making sure you have enough savings, you're starting to save enough for retirement, making sure you're paying down that debt if you do have any. For those in the late career, protecting your income, like I mentioned. A big one here, making sure you're on the same page as your partner. I think the quarantine and the pandemic has really helped put into perspective for people what it's like to be retired and to be with your partner all the time. I am usually traveling a lot across the country doing presentations and trainings. And I've been with my husband a lot in this house. And it gets us thinking, okay, maybe we need like a she shed. Maybe we need to do some renovations, or when we retire, I want to make sure I can do some girl trips and go to the Bahamas and do things with my girlfriends, and have something to look forward to with that. So just make sure you're on the same page. Do you want to downsize or get a bigger house when you retire? Do you want to retire somewhere warm, or do they want to go somewhere and get a cabin? So just having some of these conversations, and your advisor should help facilitate some of these conversations to make sure you're on the same page. Because what we don't want is to get to retirement. And I actually watched a webinar a few days ago, and it said the largest group of divorcees right now are the gray divorcees, and they're divorcing in retirement, and they waited for the kids to graduate and to go, and they have the empty nest, and then they're splitting up. So just starting to have these conversations earlier to make sure you're on the same page earlier, I think it really helps to prevent some of those things if it's possible. What retirement's going to look like? What happens if things don't go as planned? They're not going to go as planned. As we've seen the last year going into this year, things don't always go as planned. But in our MoneyGuide software, and when you work with your financial advisor, we could play around with some of those variables. We call it stress testing. So, what if the market's down? What if the pension is cut? What if Social Security gets cut? I'm not betting on Social Security. I don't know if it's going to be around for me. So, how can we play around and stress test some of those things to see what would happen if? And then we have those in retirement. We didn't have anyone in that category, but some common questions and goals we see in our software. Where do I take the money from in retirement? I spent my whole life saving and saving and growing and growing. and now I have to dip into it. Well, where do I start? Do I start with my checking account? Do I start with this pension or this Social Security thing I've been paying into? So answering that question, can I afford to still gift? I know my husband and I, our parents, are trying to give to our son. We have a 529 college plan for him, and they can put money into that account. They want to send toys, and I'm like, put some money in the 529 instead. We don't need any more toys. So can you still gift to your church or to your community? Will their recession impact my results? So again, some of that stress testing, and these are things your advisor will be able to do for you and answer those questions for you. So I talked a little bit about risk and the market fluctuations and volatility, because if you watch the news at all, even if you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, the markets, they're up, they're down. You probably heard about GameStop, everything that's going on with investing. But I have a question here, and type me in the chat. If you gain 10% and then lose 10%, do you end up right back where you started? So we have, let's say, $1,000. I gain 10%, I lose 10%. Am I right back at that $1,000? So we have nope, lots of no's. Very, very smart folks on the line. That is correct. So here's an example. We have $100,000. We gain 10%. We're at a $110,000. We lose 10% of that. We're only at $99,000. So we're actually lower than where we started. So I talked about that risk tolerance. We want to make sure we're in a risk tolerance and we're diversified enough where we're safe. We're not worried. If we drop 10%, we're not trying to sell everything and get out, because once we sell, we're actualizing that $99,000, and that's what we take home. That's what we have. So just making sure we're in it somewhere where we're safe, we're comfortable. And if you lose 10%, you don't want to sell. You're saying, I know this is long term. It's going to come back up eventually. That's where we want to be. That's what I call like our sweet spot. All right, so we're at about half of our time, or 36. And I want to do 2 case studies. So our first case study is going to be more for our early recent alumni. And then we'll do a second one where we'll actually build a financial plan together. So I need you to utilize the chat for both of these case studies. And I'm going to exit my presentation mode here. And let me move this on this side. All right, so our first case study, I need a name for our client. Any name. I'm going to use, no one's typed anything. I'm going to use, Susan, because that was a name I saw, Susan Tupper. And I'll say she's about 25, 1996. And how much student loan debt does Susan Tupper have? 100,000. Whew, that's a lot. 60, 50. All right, it's going down now. All right, we'll do 50,000. Mara put that. All right. So Susan has 50,000. She's 25 with $50,000 in student loan debt. I'm going to jump into my financial plan. I'm going to log in and time me out. Now let's do my license here. And I'm going to jump in and make a fake client named Susan Tupper. She's a female, and I'll say her birthday is January 1st. Let's see, 1996. Yep, 25. Perfect. All right, so let's take a look. We have this feature called My Blocks. So I talked about comprehensive financial planning. My Blocks is more of that specialized or modularized financial planning. We're just taking that one section of student loan, and I want to just look at that one section instead of everything. Because she's only 25, she's probably not thinking about all those different sections yet. But this is a good starting point. We'll start here. So I'm going to go down. We can talk about emergency fund or maybe first purchase. Then I'm going to go to pay off college loans. And let's say Susan has 2 loans. Let's say one is 30,000 and it has 28% interest. And I'll say the minimum payment is $300. And let's say we have loan 2, and that's 20,000. And that one only has 10% interest with a smaller minimum payment. So that's $50,000 across her 2 loans. So now it's asking us how much can she pay each month. Her minimum payment was only $500. So here we see if she pays the minimum payment, I'll look out maybe 6 years. So we look 6 years into her paying this with our highest interest first. And she hasn't even made a dent in one of them. So maybe let me go out 10 years. She still hasn't made, oh, did I make that too high? 267,000. Let me go back. Let me make sure I put 30. Yep. Okay. Yep. Elizabeth, I just made that up. So I can go in and certainly change it. If I had the information, I would put in her exact rates. But I can solve here. So she'll be debt free in 10 years if she paid $918 a month instead of her $500 a month. So almost doubling her payment, she'll be debt free in 10 years. Versus if we maybe pay the lowest balance first, we can solve and see if she pays $1,000, she'll be debt free in 10 years. So just playing around with the numbers. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that. It makes different sound effects came out in my headphones. But we can see she'll be debt free, and we actually have no, just made up a number with the interest rate. I just wanted to compare a really high and a really low interest rate. So here we can see if we pay the lowest balance first, she's paying $79,000 in interest. Versus if we pay the highest interest rate first, it's only $38,000 in interest. So really big difference in trying to decide, should we pay the highest balance first or the highest interest rate first? In this case, we see $38,000 in interest versus $79,000 in interest. That's a very big difference. So something to keep in mind if you're talking to a financial advisor, that's a good question to ask. Should I pay my highest interest rate first or my highest balance first? And they can easily compare something like our software or a spreadsheet, the difference in that interest that you'll pay over the lifetime. So I'm going to go back. Yeah, I did a drastic example with the highs just to compare the top and bottom, the highest interest rate versus the payment. But there are a lot of other different blocks here that are available. The emergency fund, same thing with paying off the credit card debt. Should we pay the highest interest rate first or the lowest payment? We like to call it the snowball method. When you pay the lowest balance first, you kind of snowball that payment into the next credit card. Once you pay that one off, you snowball that into the next credit card. So that's a popular philosophy. I think Dave Ramsey is known for that debt snowball method. So that's another option a lot of people like to look at. A lot of folks are talking about refinancing right now. Rates are really low on mortgages. So looking at, should we refinance? I think that's a great question. Yep, Dave Ramsey, we use it at our church. We talk to people about financial literacy. He has a great program. It can be very strict for some people, but strict works well for some people. So these are just some of our more modularized planning, not looking at the comprehensive plan. But now let's switch over and let's look at more of that comprehensive plan. So we're going to do the same thing here. We need 5 pieces of information now for our comprehensive plan. So first I need a name, husband and wife name. Yeah, today's rates are much better. All right, I have DJ here at the bottom of my chat. So I'll set DJ, and I need another name. I'm gonna say DJ and Kat Tanner. Date of birth, I'll say January 1st. It's always easier for me. I'll do 1970. And I'll say she is January 1st, 1972. How much do DJ and Kat make in income? How much money do they make a year?
50,000.
All right, we got 50,000 for DJ. How much does Kat make?
42.
All right, 50 and 42. And how much do they have in assets? How much have they saved? Let's say they're in their 50s. How much have they saved across their life? Type in the chat. 100,000. That's it. I got Jennifer. All right, I'm gonna bump it up. I'll do $1 million. Maybe they inherited
Ooh.
some money. Oh, 400. Yep, we got their home. So that makes it 5. Okay, I'll
Mhm.
lower it. So we got 400. 401k is 400. I'll do 800. So you got a 401k. Maybe they inherited some money. One of their parents passed away. Maybe they've been saving in their 401k, their brokerage accounts. And then from one is the most conservative, to 100, which is the most aggressive, where do we want to put their risk tolerance? From 1 to 100, where's their risk tolerance?
50.
50, right in the middle. Easy. All right, so I'm going to move this on my other screen here. So with our 5 pieces of information, I'm going to build a quick plan for our clients. I'm going to go to our clients. We have DJ and Kat Tanner. DJ Tanner from Full House. He's a male. His birthday is 01/01/1970. He's married to Kat Tanner. I got my caps lock on there. She's a female. And I'll hit done. And we're going to do a quick plan. We have some different options here. We can get really detailed. I'm going to do this zoomer. We're going to zoom right through it. And we said DJ made 50,000 and Kat made 42,000. And let's say Kat gets 12,000 a year from maybe a rental property she manages, or she inherited some rental property. So I'll throw that in there. And let's say they live, I'm in Virginia. I'm going to put Virginia. We don't have much snow here, which is nice. And let's say they have a child. Let's see, Jennifer is the last person in the chat. So they have a child named Jennifer. And Jennifer is, let's say, 27. So this first piece here, I like these expectations and concerns. We could skip it, but just something to keep in mind when you're going to work with a financial advisor, it shouldn't all just be business and spreadsheets and real technical investment terminology. I think there's a lot of value in making sure they know you, they know your kids, they understand your life, they understand what you're worried about, what keeps you up at night. I want them to know what you're excited about, what you're looking forward to. This person is managing your money, and your money is your what you've been saving for your whole life, your why. So I want them to ask you questions like, what are your hopes and your dreams in retirement? Do you want time to travel? I know we all want time to travel right now. Do you want to help others, or maybe have an active lifestyle, quiet lifestyle? Maybe start a business in retirement? So these are some of the more touchy-feely parts of the financial planning process, but I think there's a lot of value because they'll tie into some of those recommendations later. So I'm going to skip over it, but don't let your advisors brush off some of those things. I think there's a lot of value in building that relationship with them. So here we have DJ and Kat retiring in 2035. So he'll be 65, she'll be 63. It's about normal retirement ages. We can always bump it down if we want to look at another scenario later. And we talked a lot about goals. So let's add some financial goals for the Tanners. So here we have their retirement expenses. Healthcare is very expensive in retirement. Sports car, travel, we have a home improvement, buying an SUV every 5 years. So these are just automatic goals I just added in really quick with our auto goals feature. But your advisor will talk to you, make sure those goals are specific and specified for you. The amounts would be what you want. But I just use the default, like our generic goals. Social Security, you paid into Social Security your whole life. Now it's your turn to get that money out. So we're going to have DJ and Kat take their Social Security at retirement, which is when most people like to take it as soon as they retire. So that's 65 and 63. And then I'll enter their assets. That's our fourth of our 5 pieces of information. It had $800,000. And I think someone typed in half of that was in the 401k. And let's say they're contributing $1,000 a month to that 401k while they're still working. So we have half of that in 401k, half of that in just a taxable account. And then the last thing we need is that risk score from 1 to 100. We said 50. So I want you to type me in the question area from 1 to 99. What do you think the results will look like for the Tanners? So 1 being the worst result, 99 being they're great, they're not having any issues, they're able to fund their retirement. Actually, I'm going to put some little stars here so we can separate our risk score from our results. All right. So from 1 to 99, where do you think they will fall? All right, 22, 85, low performance success, 30. All right, so we're answering the question, can they fund all those goals that we built without running out of money? Do they have enough money to fund those goals? We're using something called a Monte Carlo simulation. So we're not just saying, what if you get a flat return every single year? Because that's not going to happen. So we're going to vary those returns every year. They're going to go up and down. They're actually randomized. And we do that 1,000 different times. So let's take a look. Oh, not bad. 68. So we got 50, 65. Amy's put 65. Good job. You're very close. And I'll hit next. So that's where they are currently. Now, when you work with the advisor, they're going to try to make that much higher. So it went from 65, 60, was it 65, I think, to 71. And that's just by reallocating your portfolio. But then I like this feature called the play zone, where the advisor can just make small tweaks and changes with you to the results and your habits, your behaviors, and see if we can bump that up. For example, let's say instead of spending $4,000 in fund money when they're retired, they spend $3,000. Like a small change there bumps them up to 73. Or maybe if DJ says he'll work one more year. So just these small changes can increase the result, 75. Maybe deciding when they're going to retire later, Jennifer says. Looking at Social Security. So they said they're going to take it as soon as they can at retirement. But the advisor might say, well, what if you take it a little later? Because the longer you wait to take Social Security, the more money you'll get. Exactly. At age 70, you get the most money. So let's see what that would look like if they take their benefit at 70 instead of at 65. So if you're looking at my screen, you see that at 65 and 63, they get about $1 million in Social Security. If they wait until 70, they get $1.3 million just by waiting. That's not saving more or spending less. That's just saying if they wait those 5 and 7 years, they get $300,000 more in their lifetime. Might be worth, looking into. Or they might say, I don't think it's going to be around that long. I'm not going to wait. That's a conversation to have. But I like that goes from 75 to 83. So they might decide that's what I want to do. I want to change my result. So that's just how those small tweaks and those small changes can increase that result pretty drastically from 75 to 83 just by waiting on when you take your benefit. So I'm going to pause here. We can continue to play around in this plan and make tweaks and changes. But I want to make sure you have some time to learn about the next session, session number 2. That's more of a panel discussion. But I hope you can feel empowered and encouraged. The planning process can be interactive. It can be engaging. Your advisor can get you involved in this process. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be as simple as doing just those little modules that we saw, or it can be as complex and detailed as you want it to be. So I'll pause here. Kathleen, anything you'd like to add?
Hi, everyone. So what you received today was really just a technical example of the types of tools that are out there. And I know that some of our students are having the opportunity to work with these tools right in the classroom with some of our professors. And I think Soraya may put up a slide at the end that if you did want to have more information about this particular tool, I'm sure that she or Eileen would be happy to connect with you on that front. When we meet the next time, we really want to hear the personal stories. What are some of the challenges we face as we move through these different milestones? What are the personal stories and experiences and life lessons we can share with each other in a conversational setting? Hearing a few examples from alumni from different aspects of of those kind of life stages and milestones on March 17th. So Eileen Hayes will be leading that conversation, and I really hope all of you can join us for that. It does take what is this practical tool and help us kind of digest it and think about it a little bit more holistically and philosophically for how do we apply it to real life, especially when real life can be super messy and throw curveballs, even if we try to have a good plan. So stick with us, and also look at our alumni calendar. We have other webinar and programs coming up on the calendar all the time. And of course, to continue to connect with each other and with Eileen for more on this topic and other topics, or getting involved with alumni, or maybe connecting and mentoring some of our current students, please, if you haven't already, join Alumni Fire. And do we have any other questions for our speaker or for Eileen today? Well, in that case, maybe we should give everyone a couple minutes of their day back and head off into your evening. Well, there's still a little bit of sunshine left. It's going to have a nice sunset here in Rhode Island, and some of our snow melted. So have at least a little sunny sky and sunset to look forward to, even though it's cold here. Hope the rest of you are all safe and happy with your surroundings as well.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks so much.